Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. And I'm really excited to bring you today's episode about the Tampa Bay Lightning. So let's go ahead and get right in there with this expansion team. So in 92-93, this was the inaugural season for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they were actually in the Norris Division this year. They wouldn't move over to the Eastern Conference until the 93-94 season, so it's just kind of a weird transition year for them, but they did relatively well for an expansion team of the time. Between Ottawa, San Jose, and Tampa Bay by far had the best inaugural season by going 23, 54, and 7 for a total of 53 points, which put them comfortably in last place in their division, but they were not an absolute tire fire like San Jose and Ottawa were. So in 94, Tampa Bay has a low home ice advantage and a low road ice disadvantage, which is pretty unique for a expansion team. Most expansion teams have a brutal road ice disadvantage, so Tampa Bay is actually a team you can call in a tournament when you lose the coin toss, which makes them one of the more appealing expansion franchises you can use in this game, as opposed to, say, Anaheim, Ottawa, or what's the other one, Florida, and even San Jose, which they aren't brutal on the road, but they do have a high disadvantage, so definitely not as appealing as Tampa Bay, obviously. Tampa Bay is a Tier 6 team. They sit comfortably within their expansion team matchups between San Jose, Ottawa, Anaheim, and Florida, but Tampa Bay is one of those teams you can actually sneak up the ladder a little bit. If you think you have a slight edge on your opponent, you could probably sneak them up against St. Louis and Hartford, and if you think your opponent is just totally unaware of CB checking, you could actually take them up against Pittsburgh in some cases, because Tampa Bay can play a very physical brand of hockey against a team like Pittsburgh. So let's talk about some of the strengths for the Lightning, which is they're actually pretty good strengths, considering. Oh, just totally threw aside my microphone there on that. Sorry guys, hope that wasn't too abrasive on the ears. But getting back into the Tampa Bay Lightning, their strengths are actually pretty legitimate for an expansion team. And the first one is they are weight bug checking monsters. So if you love to use your weight buggers, no matter how good or bad they are, Tampa Bay is certainly the team for you. They are also the best shooting team by far in this tier. They have the best shot power and the best shot accuracy, and they have two different guys that are really inclined to score early and often in games. They also have a lot of different options at forward, and some of them are actually pretty decent. So it's definitely good to have that flexibility in terms of what you're looking for. They have advantage. They can take advantage of players that don't CB check. So guys, like I just mentioned, if you want to give them a good team and trick them essentially by giving them a good team that you're just going to keep knocking over, you could definitely use Tampa Bay in that capacity. And they're also a good team to choose as a visitor in tournament format. As I already touched on, they have the low road ice disadvantage, which if you lose the coin toss and you select the two teams in tournament play, you will have the away team in that situation. But there are also, obviously, especially with a Tier 6 team, some pretty big weaknesses. And first off, you have the worst defense in the league in terms of your defensemen. Your forwards really have to carry the day on defense, and your defensemen, they are just god-awful, unfortunately. You also have a really poor goaltender. It's not quite Ottawa or Anaheim bad, but Wendell Young, certainly not a strength. You're also bereft of any real good skaters on this team. I mean, you have one guy with 4 speed, but he's got 2 agility, and then that's it. You have one guy with 4 agility but 3 speed. They're a little slow, unfortunately. You will also always have your third forward be a grinder. I mean, you have a lot of options of who you can put there, and they're all a little bit different, but at the end of the day, they're all grinders. So you're going to be a little undermanned if you get into an offensive shootout with an upper echelon team. And lastly, on this team, you have very little to essentially no CB checking presence. So if you're looking to try and match up against a team, or if your opponent can actually, use a CB check, you don't really have that option to try and match them with that, or to try an ISO lineup that they can't CB check. You're kind of stuck with your weight buggers, and you have to live life like that. So luckily, you have some pretty good weight buggers, and we're going to go ahead and start talking about some of them. First lineup I like to use is Chris Kontos with Brian Bradley and Steve Casper out on the wing. You can obviously switch Kontos and Bradley, or you they're pretty interchangeable because these are your two offensive weapons right here that you want to use. So it's just wherever you prefer to have your guys, really. And also, if you want, you could take Kontos out and you could put another grinder in there, but then you really put a lot of pressure on Bradley to score goals. And if your opponent can CV check, Brian Bradley, he could be on his backside a lot because he's easy to CV check, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. But first, let's talk about Chris Kontos, one of my favorite players to use in these lower tiers, and is always a favorite of mine to keep in my reserves in any draft league. He has 3 agility, 3 speed, so pretty average skater, but he does have 4 offensive awareness to go 3 defensive awareness, so he should be filling out the slot pretty regularly. He has 3 shot power, which is decent, and 5 accuracy, which is excellent for this tier. This is it makes him the second best shooter in this tier at 3 power, 5 accuracy, so he's definitely a weapon to be reckoned with. He has 3 pass accuracy and 3 stick handling, so perfectly fine there. 204 pounds, so he's a bit of a weight bug target, especially with his lesser skating ability. He's not much of a CB checker. He's okay if you go up against a real lightweight, like a guy with 180 pounds, maybe 188 pound body frame. But aside from that, you just want to use him as a poke checker. Use his skating. He's not cripplingly slow, but certainly not a burner. So just try and stay in front of your opponent with him, use the poke check, and then he's certainly a target you want to keep an eye on in the offensive zone, as he is very dangerous, especially in the one-time game against some of these weaker goalies in Tier 6. And then next, Brian Bradley, the all-star here on this team and really in Tier 6, as he is easily the best player in this tier. Except for maybe Gord Murphy, but when we're talking just purely about forwards, Brian Bradley is the man. He has 4 agility, 3 speed. He's a right-handed shot with 4 offensive awareness and 3 defensive awareness. So again, he's going to fill out that slot area more often than not. He has 4 shot power and 5 shot accuracy, which these 2 ratings together are absolutely incredible in Tier 6 and even moving up into Tier 5 in some cases, because he's just like a regular legitimate goal scorer up there. So he could really take advantage of some of these lesser goalies, even guys like Van Beesbrook, who is the only other okay, or he's like not the only other okay. He is the only okay option in Tier 6 in terms of goalies, and Bradley can still blow him away more often than not. He's not much of a playmaker, 3 pass accuracy, just 3 stick handling, so it can be a little bit tough to try and just roughshod your way through a defense through the slot area, because the puck will jump off the stick occasionally. But 172 pounds makes him very resistant to weight bug checks. Your opponent will have to know how to use the CB check. If they don't know how to CB check, if they don't like to poke check very often, they're going to have a lot of trouble with Brian Bradley and his offensive ability. He's also a very good defensive player because of his weight bug check ability, and he's a decent enough skater to get involved on defense more often than not. So Brian Bradley is definitely a two-way forward. You want to get him involved anywhere you can, and he's a force to be reckoned with in these low tiers. Lastly, for option number 1 here for your third forward spot is Steve Kasper. He is a 3 agility, 3 speed, left-handed shot, so it's not his natural wing, but you're not going to use him for offense very much, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think. He has 1 offensive awareness, which is really low, but 3 defensive awareness, so hopefully he's in the right area of the ice to play defensive, which is really what you want him for, not his offense, like I said. So 2 shot power, 3 accuracy, nothing too great there, but the 3 passing and the 3 stick handling is decent for a grinder, especially this low in the totem pole. He's going to be okay if you happen to take the puck into the zone with him. He might be able to help you get some goal scoring chances. There have been some games where he's just been on fire for me and really racked up the assists. But generally speaking, he's your defensive stopper because he's a 180 pounder, makes him a very good weight bug checker, and he has 4 checking, so even in AI mode he will occasionally just start running people over because he can. So he's a very interesting defensive player, very limited on offense, but in this tier you're hardly going to notice it, I think. And the other 2 guys on the ice should definitely bail him out in that regard. So Steve Kasper, I think, is your best all-around option for defense, but there are some other guys you can consider to get a little bit different skill set. First one, Mikael Anderson. He gives you a very different skill set. He has 2 agility and 4 speed. Kind of a weird skater, can feel really clunky in specific games, especially if he's running a little bit cold. But that speed, the 4 speed, he's the only guy on the roster with that type of speed. So if you want someone who can pretend to be a burner and maybe take advantage of a slower defense like Anaheim or Ottawa Ottawa. Mikael Anderson is your best bet in the open ice. 2 awareness on offense, 3 on defense, so he's definitely a defensive-minded guy. 2 shot power, 2 accuracy, nothing special there. 3 passing, 3 stick handling, so very similar to, or exactly the same as Casper in those 2 categories. 188 pounds, not quite as good of a weight bug checker. The lack of agility also makes it tough for him to play the body, especially if he's going up against a very agile skater like Gord Murphy, for instance, who is a very agile skater, and Mikael may have issues trying to track him. So definitely just a pure speedster. Nothing great on offense, nothing great on defense. He's just a change of pace guy. One I've kind of grown to move away from. I used to ice Mikael Anderson all the time, but over the last few years I've kind of moved away from him because he just doesn't have enough of an all-around game, and he's not anywhere near as good as Casper on defense. One guy that might be able to match Casper on defense is Rob DeMaio, but he's not quite as well-rounded. He only has 2 agility, 3 speed, so he's a little bit lesser of a skater, but at least he's on his natural side on the right wing, so he might have some more opportunities to deke the goalie in a more comfortable fashion, but with that type of speed and agility, it'll be tough regardless. 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 2 shot power, 2 accuracy, 2 passing, 2 stick handling, so he's definitely not anywhere near as well equipped to play offense as Steve Casper, but he is the same weight, 180 pounds, and he's a weight bug check force, but only a 2 checker, so he's not going to be quite as aggressive in AI mode as Steve Casper. So I think DeMaio is the perfect sub for Casper if he happens to be injured or removed from the ice for some reason, because if he gets a penalty and he's playing the right wing, you're not going to need a sub. You're going to have your other 2 guys on the ice anyway. So DeMaio, perfect injury replacement for Casper. Also, you have Mark Bureau, 3 agility, 3 speed, 3 awareness, 2 shot power, 2 accuracy, 2 passing, 3 stick handling. 196 pounds. He's a little bit better skater, but obviously not as good of a checker as DeMaio or Casper, so he's kind of just a depth piece. And then lastly, your only real other CB option except for Kontos is John Tucker. He has 2 agility, 3 speed, so he's a little clunky out there. Right-handed shot, so he's on his natural wing, so he could be good for protecting the puck and distributing the puck to your center, because keep in mind, Brian Bradley is a right-handed shot, so it's most natural to feed him from the right wing. John Tucker is okay in that regard. If you need a CB checker on the right wing, he can still distribute the puck just well enough. He has 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, and then here's the nice pass accuracy, 3 rating, and a stick handle rating of 3. So just like Steve Casper in that regard on those 2 items. 212 pounds, 2 checker. He's okay as a CB checker. By no means is he dominant or anything, but if that's the route you want to go, John Tucker can do just fine as a CB checker. Definitely don't want to start him in this matchup against Pittsburgh. He would not do well. So really, the character of your team is built with your forward line. You want to construct this to exactly the liking that you want, because you're not going to have a lot of identity with your defense, unfortunately. Your defense is, well, league worst, and you're going to see why here now that we talk about them. We got Roman Hamrlik, the #1 draft pick from the 1992 draft. He had a decent rookie season, but it didn't really translate to his 94 ratings, as he only has a 3 agility, 2 speed, and that's a theme for this defensive core, is very slow skating, unfortunately. He's got 2 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 3 shot power, 1 accuracy, which is pretty much the best shot that you're going to get on this team. He has 2 pass accuracy, 3 stick handling, 196 pounder, 2 checker. He's not much of a checker. You can use him as a poke checker and a positional defenseman. He doesn't pass the puck up really well for breakout chances. He's very mediocre at best. I mean, unfortunately, he would go on to have a very good career as a not bottom pair, but a top pair defenseman, and in some cases a second pair defenseman if he's on a good team. A lot of times he wasn't on a very good team in his career. So unfortunately, Roman Hamrlik, he is definitely his 18-year-old self here, and he didn't get a lot of credit from Igor Cooperman, the man who created these ratings for this game. And on the other side, you have Bob Beers. Best part of it was Bob Beers is obviously his name, Beers, but the rest of his abilities pretty lackluster. He's the best thing you're going to get out of him is his skating ability. He's got 3 agility, 3 speed. He's the only defenseman with 3 speed on this roster, so I think that makes him a pretty easy start because of that. He's got 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness. Bob Beers actually had a pretty good offensive year, but he only got 2 shot power, 2 shot accuracy for all that effort. So very underwhelming. 2 pass accuracy, 2 stick handling. So just all across the board, very underwhelming in terms of his skills. 212 pounder, 2 checker. He can protect. He can do okay as a CB checker. He's not this unstoppable force, but he is your best CB check option on this roster. When it comes to subs, you don't have a lot to choose from. Probably your best option is Marc Bergevin if you are a weight bug check player only. You might be inclined to take Beers out for Bergevin because Beers is not a good weight bug checker by any means, whereas Bergevin's okay. He's okay, yeah. 2 agility, 2 speed, nothing to get excited about. 2 offensive awareness, 2 defensive awareness. He's got 3 shot power, that's cool, but 0 accuracy, so don't bother. He's got 2 passing, 2 stick handling. But dude is 188 pounds, that's your best weight bug defenseman. Have fun with that. Also your best checker at 3, so he's going to be the most aggressive in AI mode, but very, very underwhelming when you really take the whole thing into account. If you need a CB checker, if say Bob Beers gets hurt, Joe Ricci, that's your man. He's got 3 agility, 2 speed, 2 offensive awareness, 2 defensive, 3 shot power, 0 accuracy, 2 passing, 3 stick handling. So, comparatively speaking, he has some okay skills for this team, but 228 pounds, he's kind of overkill, especially at 2 speed, 2 checking. I mean, he's okay in a pinch, but yeah, I wouldn't really want to start him in any situation. That's for sure. And then lastly, we have Sean Chambers, who was infamously rated at 1 overall in NHL 93, but he did a little bit better here as he's now in the high 40s. So congratulations, Sean Chambers. You actually did have a pretty solid NHL career, and it's about time that you got some recognition for it in this game, as opposed to just being a 1 overall. He's got 2 agility, 2 speed, 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 2 shot power, 1 accuracy, 2 passing, 2 stick handling, 212 pounds, so he's a little bit easier to use as a CV checker than Joe Ricci, I think. Same 2 checking, so you may be more inclined to use him off the bench. And then lastly, you will see Chris LaPuma as a default sub. If you go into the box with one of your defensemen. So if you see number 40 on the ice, get him out of there as soon as possible. Put in any of your other defensemen other than Chris LaPuma. Even Matt Hervey is a step in the right direction, and you can see they are both very poorly rated. But Chris LaPuma, he's one of those guys where I will actually make a point in a video to say he's a default sub. You need to take him out as soon as possible because he's going to hurt your team. Even in tier 6, he will get just completely destroyed by the forwards in tier 6, much less any other tier. So please keep that in mind when you take a penalty with one of your defensemen on Tampa Bay. Let's just make sure which one it is. It is your right defenseman. So if you have Bob Beers as your right defenseman and he takes a penalty, immediately go to the other line screen if you're allowed to, and find yourself a new defenseman that isn't named Chris LaPuma. So now moving on to goalie, we have Wendell Young. Not a very good goalie, but certainly not one of the worst in this tier. He has 3 agility, 3 puck control, 3 save rating on his stick, a 2 rating on his stick left, or I don't know if that's stick high or stick low. These names aren't quite right. They're supposed to be stick high and stick low, but I don't know which one's which. He also has a 3 glove rating, and on both high and low, he has a 3. 188 pounds, pretty average for a goalie, so he's going to be okay in manual goalie control, but the 3 agility is 3 agility still at the end of the day, and he's not going to move that quickly across the crease. You can't really use him to play mind games with your opponent. He's just very basic. You want to make sure you get that chest protector in front of the puck for sure. Well, luckily in tier 6, he's going against a lot of weaker shooters, a lot of slower skaters, so his inability to stop the puck won't be as apparent as it would be, say, in tier 3 or tier 4. In AI mode, he's pretty crummy, but certainly could do a lot worse. So let's go ahead and review our strategy here with Tampa Bay, because it's a little bit different than some other teams that I've been talking about recently is like, Chicago, Detroit, Dallas. Those are some more exciting teams, whereas Tampa Bay is more of a team where you want to use your forwards pretty much almost exclusively. Even if you don't have the puck and the team's coming at your defenseman, you're better off probably trying to back check with one of your forwards because they're much better at defense than your defenseman. So don't just use your forwards on offense, use them on defense as well, and make that a point when you use this team. Also, with Tampa Bay, you want to shoot from all over. In Tier 6, you're going to face a lot of really weak goalies. You have the two best shooters in Tier 6 on your team. Shoot the puck. Don't get cute. Just let it rip. You'll get some rebound chances, and you'll get some ugly goals that way. Or, you'll also get some really pretty goals because you made some nice plays to just get the puck on the net to begin with. Another thing you want to keep in mind with this team is you just want to grind, and grind some more. This is a real trap-on team. If you're familiar with any of the nomenclature here in NHL94.com, trap-on means you just play a really aggressive trap with your team and make the game very frustrating for your opponent to play. And Tampa Bay is perfect for that, especially against these lower-rated teams. You also want to pass the puck with Tampa Bay to help you avoid any CB checkers coming your way. This is not the most agile, and it's definitely not the fastest team that you're going to come across. So if you come across, say, Alexei Kasatonov or Gord Murphy or even Randy Leducier, who are decent skaters and can CB the snot out of your guys, use your passing ability. This is a fairly skilled team at this tier. So use these things that you have at your disposal to get around these, big bruising defensemen that can really slow down your offensive attack. And lastly, if you have to use your defensemen, just keep them home. Don't go on any offensive excursions. Don't pretend you're Bobby Orr or Paul Coffey or even Mark Howe and when he's 36 years old with the Detroit Red Wings or however old he is in this game. Just don't do that, please. Just look for the next man up the ice, make a quick outlet pass, and do nothing more with your defensemen, as they're not going to impose any sort of fear in the other team. Even if they're using Ottawa or Anaheim, no one fears your defensemen. So just keep them in the defensive zone and let them eat up space and frustrate the other team instead of your own team. So those, I think, are the most important things to keep in mind with the Lightning. And I am now going to play a game against a Pittsburgh Penguins squad who, generally speaking, most people will think, oh, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay has no chance in this matchup. This doesn't make any sense. Well, if you are an experienced 94 player and you're going against a more inexperienced player, one who may not know about the CB check or may not know about manual goalie or even you just have a obvious upgraded ability over them, this is a matchup you can use to take advantage of them because they're obviously going to take Pittsburgh. I mean, why would you take Tampa Bay if you're given two teams between Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh? A lot of people, well, every person will take Pittsburgh, but some people may not know that Pittsburgh's kind of a weak team, especially going against a weight bug team that you don't know how to go up, that you don't know how to counter because you're just unfamiliar with facing this type of strategy. Because you think Pittsburgh's good to begin with. And in my video where I talked about the Penguins, I try to warn people that the Penguins, they have some nice things about them, but they're not a very good team by any stretch of the imagination. And this is just a matchup where you can just go to town and weight bug check everything that you can, because the entire forward corps for Tampa Bay can weight bug check Pittsburgh, all their players. Especially, this is a perfect time actually to take Kontos out and put in, say, DeMaio or even Mikael Anderson and use them as just battering rams to create turnovers. And as provided you protect the slot and don't give up too many shots against Wendell Young, because if you let Mario Lemieux shoot against Wendell Young, Mario Lemieux can score very easily in that matchup. But provided you minimize the shots and the chances allowed, you are probably going to have a lot of success in this matchup. And if we get into a tournament where there's a lot of matchups you have to call, so you have to play 20 games one day or 25 games one day, and you're in group play and you're one of the higher seeds, and you're going against a guy that doesn't play online, and maybe he doesn't have a very good record to start that day, like he's 0-2 or 1-3 or something. This is a matchup you can call to save a good matchup later on in the tournament instead of picking an even matchup that you're wasting in your own mind because I can beat this guy with a little bit of a disadvantage. This is a matchup that you can look to. I think you maybe don't have to go this far up the ladder. You can maybe just go as simple as Tampa Bay Hartford, Tampa Bay St. Louis, Tampa Bay New Jersey. I just don't think those teams are as easy to pick off against a guy who may not have the game knowledge or experience in the tournament to they may have more kickback with those other teams that I listed, whereas Pittsburgh, they're all heavy, they're all slow, they're a little bit underskilled, they don't have a lot of shot power on their team, so I think it's something to consider in that situation. I mean, I know I've picked some matchups where I knowingly am giving up a couple tiers, but I do that simply because I want to save my premium matchups, my very even matchups for later on in the tournament, because I feel like it's more critical to have them in that situation than to use something that I want to use later on, because I don't know who I'm going to face later on in the tournament. I don't know if I'm going to face a guy who plays a lot of offense, or he's more of a defensive guy, or patient, or what have you. I want to have every bullet available to me in that situation, and if I can get away with a couple matchups where I pick some lesser teams to go up against some stronger teams, then I'm going to do it, because I think it's a risk that's worth taking, and I think it's one I can get away with in some cases, because Tampa Bay has enough firepower to keep up with some of these teams. I mean, you got Chris Kontos and Brian Bradley. If they can get the puck on net, they're just as dangerous as any other team in the game. It's just, can you hide your weaknesses? And I think it is very possible to hide your weaknesses with Tampa Bay, because they are a very uneven team. If you can play to their strengths, they look like anybody else in this game. And no other expansion team can really do that. I mean, San Jose can skate a little bit better. They can maybe pretend for a period or two that they're as good as somebody else, but Tampa Bay, over the course of a game, can actually flex their muscle and just continue to punish the other team physically and take advantage of them that way. And there's my boy Kontos getting in close on that one. He had, I think, he had both skates in the crease, but in '93 there was no skates in the crease rule, so that's a good goal. And Tampa, it wasn't like Tampa Bay was winning any Stanley Cups this year, so they were definitely not in the limelight. They were very much an undercard in the NHL circuit that year. They were more of a novelty, but a novelty that could pull off a few surprise victories, that is for sure. They had 23 victories, which is more than San Jose and Ottawa had combined in the 92-93 season. So you couldn't take Tampa Bay lightly, and some of the ratings actually transferred over, more so for their forwards like Bradley and Kontos, not so much for their defensemen like Hammerlick and Beers, who had decent years, but essentially received no sort of benefit in their ratings in this game. So it's a little unfortunate, because if they had gotten ratings they might have deserved, maybe closer to a 60 overall for Bob Beers and a 55 or a 60 for Roman Hammerlick, this wouldn't be a tier 6 team. This would probably be a tier 5 team, and maybe even a tier 4 team, because like I said, they have some serious talent here that you just don't get elsewhere in this tier. So I'm sure you're noticing me using a very aggressive defensive style, and that is because I just know that essentially whatever player I'm using with Tampa Bay can body check or weight bug check the Pittsburgh player. So I'm just not even thinking about who I'm getting. I'm not even looking at the numbers. I'm not looking at what side of what stick they are, like if they're left-handed or right-handed. I'm not looking at what position they're in. Just nothing. I'm just all of a sudden going for it, because I know I'm probably going to be okay. Trying to go for body checks, especially against a computer, it's not as critical to be as accurate with your body checks. If I was playing against a human, I wouldn't be as aggressive. I would be a little bit more controlled, but I would still definitely be looking for more body checks than I usually would. And hey, Beers. Beers. Nice to see him get on the board. I always enjoy that. see if I can run up the score here a little bit. Oh, wow, big save. Last 2 games have been a little underwhelming. I had only 3 goals with St. Louis and 8 with Dallas. I know I missed about 10 shots with Dallas, but definitely want to put on a little bit better performance here with one of my absolute favorite teams in the game. I've actually had some people think I was from Florida, or even more specifically the Tampa Bay region before, just because I always pick Brian Bradley or Chris Kontos or just the whole team when given the chance. But definitely not from Florida, not from Tampa. I've been to Florida, didn't really like it, but I do like the team, and I do still root for them, provided they're not playing against the Sharks. I just liked Vinny Lecavalier and Martin St. Louis, and Brad Richards was a very good player, and Dan Boyle, who was eventually traded to San Jose, was one of my favorite players when he was in the league. I just loved the way he could move the puck around the ice and skate and even shoot. Wasn't necessarily a powerful shot, but he was very accurate and very smart when he used it. So it's just been kind of one of those things where, I've admired Tampa Bay from afar. And just making Barrasso look pretty bad there. He kind of got screened, but his entire defense was just skate back into him, so I couldn't help but do that short side deke that I like so much. So definitely got Tampa clicking here. Kontos looking like himself in the olden days when he was in the Blitz League. Those are some fun times for sure. That must have been, what, 7-8 years ago now that we were playing Blitz 1, Blitz 2. It's been definitely some time, and it doesn't always feel like it, but time does fly when you're having fun with this game, and it's good to still be playing it all these years later. And there's a victory I feel a little bit better about putting on this channel. 12 goals against Pittsburgh. Feels like I actually did something here. So nice to see that, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode about Tampa Bay. I know I certainly enjoyed it. This was probably my most favorite expansion team to talk about, aside from San Jose, obviously, but definitely love talking about Tampa Bay, and was happy to bring this to you guys. So if you guys enjoyed the video, just go ahead and leave a comment. If you want to see more of this stuff, feel free to subscribe or just continue to pop in here, and I'm hopefully going to keep making the rest of these videos for the Smythe division. So that's 6 more videos coming for this, and then I'm gonna try and do some more different things. Maybe do some actual live streaming, or do some playoff runs with different rule parameters, or maybe I'll show off the NHL 94 DOS version. I got some ideas brewing in my head, so if you guys have any things that you want to see me do, please feel free to let me know, whether it be here on the channel or through Twitter or YouTube or NHL94.com in the forums there. So please feel free to speak up, and hope to see you guys next time. All right.